The focus then of this week is really not the checkers, it's the calculator. You might notice here I'm actually working in the same project. It doesn't mean anything. You can build this wherever you want to, whatever project you want to. You're going to have this file to download. The traditional calculator problem starts with just a description. You build everything, but I don't want you to have to deal with all the extra modeling and user interface and everything else like that. So I've simplified your world down to one method, process command. So I'm going to give you a list of commands, and you're going to return back to me a string answer. And that string is either going to be a number converted back into a string, most likely a double, or invalid message if the command was invalid. But you do not need to, outside of my spelling errors here, fix any. You don't have to look for any bad data coming in. So if you just download this as it is, it actually runs and it gives you a bunch of test cases. So you can see 2 plus, that's the postfix notation. We're going to talk about that more in a second. But 2 plus, it's expecting you to return 4.0, and right now it returns invalid command for every single one of them. But this postfix notation, 2 plus, is really a great notation for dealing with the priorities of numbers, the precedence, the operator precedence, and also for quickly typing it in. And it actually facilitates well with the stack. So once it goes to the test cases, you can type in whatever you want to. And I want to show you something. If I say 2 plus, it tells me invalid command. But if I say 2 plus 2, or 23 in this case, it says your command was invalid. So what my code does is it makes sure that you always have a number, space, number, space, and then either one of the 5 valid operations, plus, minus, multiply, divide, and power. But if I do anything else, it's going to have a different message inside of it. So if I would type, for instance, 2 plus 2, that's going to be rejected by my code. If I say 2 space plus space 2, your code should do exactly this, return an invalid command, because postfix requires you to have at least 2 numbers before the operation. Now this should result into a 4.0, but as I said, you haven't coded this yet. So for the most part, you don't have to worry about all of that structure. There is a helper method inside of here that you will probably find use of. Let me see if I can find it. Is double. Again, this just real quick and easy says it parses the double, returns true if it parses and false otherwise. You could do this code yourself and catch the exception, but I wanted to go ahead and wrap that up for you. So inside of your logic, you can just say if it's a double, you do something with it. Otherwise, you look for one of the operators. And the operators are listed for you right here in an array. These are the 5 valid operators. Now, how do you do the calculator? That's a bit of the trickier part of this. Just simply talking about the calculator is one thing. I showed you a little bit about how the undo and the checkers worked. So what I've done for you here is I've gotten a resource online that you can use to help understand how this postfix calculator works. And so in the description, you see this URL page, and oops, I've clicked something wrong here. Let me, all right, hold on a second. It's in the code as well. Sorry, I lost my URL here. Let me find it. I have it right here in my C++ version of this. I build them both at the same time, so that way whatever class I'm teaching, people have lots of options to see it. But here is, oh yeah, it's in the test part. But here is the URL. This website's finicky from the URL standpoint, but it works great once you get there. Okay, postfix evaluator. So you can see there's examples inside of here, which are really, really great. I'm going to start with the one we just talked about, 2 space 2 space plus. And when you do this evaluation, this not just gives you the answer, which it does, eventually here. There you go. So 2 plus evaluates to 4, but it shows you how it evaluates to 4. So it gets the first 2, it pushes on the stack. It gets the second 2, and it pushes on the stack. And then it sees the plus, and it takes 2, 2, and then adds them because the plus operation, and then it puts that result on the stack. And then it returns, there's no other command, so it returns this item that's on the stack. So you can look at some of these more complicated examples, and some of these I copied out, and are part of the test cases as well. So you can see how they're supposed to behave. So push the 4 to the stack, push the 8 to the stack, push the 3 to the stack, see the multiplication. So I pull the 8 and the 3 off, I multiply them, throw the 24 back on the stack, and then I see the plus, so I pull the 4 and 24 off the stack, and then I add them together and throw the 28 in the stack, and then there's nothing left, so I return it. All right, so this tells you exactly the algorithm by which you're going to solve it and how you're going to use the stack. So your job is just simply to write, maybe 50 or so lines of code inside of this method right here. The test cases I said are provided for you. If you want to practice them, you can do additional ones by using the command line calculator right here. You just type in the commands and it'll send you appropriate things. But remember, you also have to deal with error cases like things out of order or too many items. So if I just, if I put in, for instance, 2 space 2 space 2 space 2 space 2 plus, this is not a valid command. Well, it kind of is a valid command. It process it here, but it's not really a valid command because there's a whole bunch of things left on the stack in the end. And so I really should flag this as being an invalid expression because I've ignored most of the values. So this one evaluates it. I would disagree with it in this case. That it's, since the stack is not one item, I wouldn't return a valid answer. So invalid command to that. All right. So again, this is a little bit of a primer to set you up. Your task is to take the code I provided, the UI, all around that, this website that tells you how to do this knowledge about stacks, and put it together into an exercise. It's not intended to be super complicated, so don't make it super complicated. It's intended to be a good way of practicing this stuff in a very pragmatic, realistic application that's complex on its own, but then it gives us some breathing space to catch up on some other stuff and look forward as well. So use it as such. I mean, if you're running behind, knock this out, keep up with old work, keep learning what you need to learn. If you're running ahead, spend some time extra on this if you want to, or move ahead to the next stuff. But again, for those of you who don't have the time, this does not need to be super complicated. It's intended to be a great bit of practice, but not really to stretch your brain. So if you have questions, if you're feeling your brain stretched, take a pause, reach out for help, ask classmates, in the course room, or ask me, but don't try and make this bigger than it needs to be.